Hello and welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, where it is a Qipco British Champions Day special. And as I'm sure every podcast up and down the country is saying, previewing Qipco British Champions Day, we've amassed our own group of champions. They are Gina Bryce, Jane Mangan and Donn McClean, looking ahead to Saturday afternoon. We know, first of all now, thankfully, because we're worried we're going to find out on Saturday, that it's definitely going to be taking place on the inner course, the hurdles course, which changes things, Jane Mangan, a bit for the better, I suppose, because we now know that we're not going to be on waterlogged ground. At least they've made that decision early.
Yeah, well, obviously, completely fresh ground is what you want for the three races that are going to be run on the round course. And it's good that common sense has prevailed and that they're going to use all the resources at their disposal. Obviously, Ascot is a magnificent track, but it would be a shame not to use all the ground that is on offer. Obviously, the straight course is going to be really testing. Kind of evokes memories of I Can Fly, nearly running down Roaring Lion last year on soft ground. But yes, it's definitely a head scratcher as regards how some horses will handle it. But it's British Champions Day. You want to see the best horses line up. Thus, hopefully, the likes of Stradivarius will take their chance. I know some late decisions are going to be made, maybe even the morning of the race before Connections walk the track. But yeah, it's going to throw up some obscure winners. Soft ground always does, but it's National Hunt weather. What else do we expect? And look, hopefully we'll be able to pick a few out along the way.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's relatively quick off the back of the art meeting. We're also going to have John Gosden walking the track, which you mentioned, Jane. Gina, that means that we're all going to be looking out, spotting John. Where is he? And will Stradivarius run? It would be a real shame if he weren't to run, but we're going to find out in the morning.
Yeah, it is a shame, and particularly for punters who are looking at that race. You know, it would help if they knew it well in advance. But I actually spent a little bit of time with the owner, Bjorn Nielsen, up at Tattersalls this week. He was selling and buying a few horses, and he's just brimming with confidence about this horse, as you would be, what we've seen from him this season. Remember, he won this race last year on soft ground, and at that stage, he was kind of, you know, looking a little bit like he'd had a long, hard season, whereas there's not a bit of it this year. They believe very much that he's kind of better than ever. They're really keen to run. The owner's really keen to run. He'll be there. So I think, providing it's not, you know, treacherous, sticky, holding ground that's really going to bottom him, obviously with a view to him coming back next season, I imagine they'll do their best to try and get him to line up. And that's key, isn't it? It is a brilliant day, 6 races, 4.2 million in prize money in the pot, but we do need those star acts, and with the likes of, you know, Enable not being there, and, you know, some of the other big names, we need a big one, and Stradivarius is that one, so we'll have to keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's the usual suspects of John Gosden, Aidan O'Brien, who are throwing the big guns at the meeting. Don, we're not certain. It's worth pointing out when we're doing this ahead of Qipco British Champions Day exactly what Aidan's going to throw into the mix. So there's a bit of O'Brien bingo going on there. Having said that, it looks as though Magical's going to go in the Champion Stakes. We hope.
Yeah, that looks the way, Tom. Looks like Hugh Gardner's going to go in the Long Distance Cup. Magna Grecia maybe for the QE2, which would be fascinating because we haven't seen him since he got beaten in the Irish Guineas. He was injured after that, so yeah, it'd be great to see him back. And the QE2, you know, it's a race that it's probably a winnable race for a QE2, for a Group 1 race. But yeah, look, Magical, she's been very busy this year, but she keeps on coming back. I think she's run 7 times this season so far. She won the Irish Champion Stakes, ran well for a long way in the Arc, and yeah, look, it's only 2 weeks since the Arc, but at the same time, she's a tough filly, and there's no reason to think why she shouldn't run a race. It's a little bit of a concern from a betting perspective, given that she's probably going to be short enough. If she does line up, she's the form horse in the race for sure. But yeah, it's fascinating to see what Aidan's going to do.
Yeah, James Doyle was interesting with his comments earlier on the week about the fact that obviously he would have wanted it on the waterlogged course because getting a paddle out would be perfect for a day, but it's not going to happen.
But it's a funny thing, on like I know we'll talk about this in specific terms later, but all the soft ground horses were back during the week. The likes of Adabe got to be a very short price, the Revenant as well. And, you know, and the moves to the track, the fact that, we know how well Ascot drains as well, even the straight track, maybe it's not going to be as soft as we think it's going to be, or maybe we thought it's going to be with all the headlines. So maybe the soft ground horses will drift closer to off time.
Yeah, I wonder exactly what it's going to ride like, also the straight track, which is where we come to first of all. So let's kick off the preview. We're going to go in chronological order, and that, of course, means that we're going to do the Long Distance Cup now before the fillies and mares, because that's moved and that's now the second race. It's also got a decrease of 82 yards, and the Fillies of Mares has a decrease of 78 yards. All change. Look out. I don't know whether that means a lot to you or not, but I thought I'd let you know. Right, as far as the Champions Sprint goes, read you out some prices first of all. Hello Youmzain is 5.9. That's biggest on the Matchbook exchange compared to anywhere else. Advertise is 5.0. Make a Challenge 6.68. One Master a point bigger than that. Kate Byron 10s, and then we're into the double figures. Jane, I'm coming to you, which I know you'll be delighted with regards to the Champion Sprint. Just first of all, Make a Challenge makes things really interesting because this is sort of out of left field. A month ago, we wouldn't necessarily have expected Make a Challenge to be there.
Yeah, well, he's on a steep upward curve. If you'd even said in Galway when he racked up a brace of wins that he'd be running in a Group 1, I would have said you were mad. You could run in a Group 1, but whether you count or not. But here we are, third favourite. And Dennis Hogan's after supplementing him for over 40 grand for the race. He ran super at the Curragh last time. He's obviously in a really rich vein of form. His mind is after being sweetened up no end by current connections, and he deserves to take his chance. But to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't be putting my hard-earned money on a horse of his profile until he's proven that he's taken the step into Group 1 company and is actually going to be able to live with it. Advertise deserves to be favourite. Hello Youmzain, I actually thought would be a little bit bigger. He's still quite lightly raced horse, only had the 7 starts. But he is the horse that I like. Started the season beating Calix. Remember that shock when Calix got beaten? Who is this horse that beat Calix? It turns out that he's actually okay. He was very good in Haydock last time on easy going ground, on soft ground. Question mark, obviously we can talk about the ground all we want. It'll get a bit boring by the end of the podcast. So I think Hello Youmzain is probably the likely improver in here. Advertise has been a brilliant horse for connections, but he has danced a lot of dances at this stage, and I just think Kevin Ryan's horse will come in a fresher horse. I could harp on about a lot of them. The Tin Man and One Master, they'll be proven on the ground. One Master ran super in the Prix de la Forêt, a race that's made for her really. She loves the 7. Maybe a stiff 6 will bring out the best in her as well, but I thought So Perfect has put in some very credible performances at bigger prices. She's the one that I'd be having an each way punt on. But if I was to ride a horse in the race, it would be Hello Youmzain.
As you say, when he beat Calix, everyone went, well, Calix is injured, so that's why Hello Youmzain won that. And of course, on this sort of ground, went out and won last time and proved himself to be a very good horse. Gina, what's your take on the Champion Sprint? In agreement with Jane, looking elsewhere?
Yes, certainly not in disagreement with the comments on Hello Youmzain. I think he's the potential improver in the field. I know Kevin Ryan's always held him in really high regard. As Jane mentioned, he beat the Tinman in the Haydock Sprint Cup in a race which, lacked a little bit of star quality in that we didn't have an Advertise in there or a 10 Sovereigns. He's finished obviously behind Advertise previously, but as Jane said, he's the progressive horse. He's the one on the up, whereas we sort of know where we're at with Advertise. He's a very worthy favourite. Martin Mead said he's not going to have too many concerns about the ground. Whether that's the case or not, it's hard to know. When he said he's been training well on it at home, whether he's going to translate that to the track. I think he's a wonderful horse. And actually, although he has danced every dance, he has only had 4 runs this season. So, he's had a bit of a break. I think he definitely couldn't rule out Advertise based on a busy campaign. But I think there is so much scope for something lurking in here. We've seen it in previous years. Sands of Marley springing a shock last year on soft ground. That it's just got the feel of a sort of race where we've seen what Advertise can do this season, but could something pop up in these sort of conditions and spring a bit of a surprise? And I think the Tin Man will run well. He ran very well at Haydock. He won this race, I think it was back in 2016, wasn't it? I know he's a 7-year-old now and he hasn't necessarily shown he's at the top of his game, but he's looked unlucky at several times this season, and he probably won't win. He'll probably finish second and look unlucky again, but he's definitely worth taking a look at big prices each way. But I actually think Sands of Marley is a really interesting contender. I mean, he won it at a big price last year in soft ground. I went to see Richard Fahey at the start of the season, and he could not have been more confident about this horse. I mean, he must be gutted with how the season's generally gone, because he thought this is going to be my champion sprinter this year. He's more than good enough. We'd obviously seen him put in that big performance at the back end of last year. You just get this impression that they haven't quite got to, they didn't quite know where they were at the season before. He surprised them with a few disappointing runs, and this year it's kind of been a similar story. He ran in Dubai, didn't he? He kind of didn't run his race on good to firm at Ascot. He's coming back here. All the conditions, everything's sort of lining up the same as last year. You never know which Sands of Mali is going to turn up, but it wouldn't be a surprise to me to see him do a similar thing to what he did last year. So I think, at the prices, maybe Sands of Mali might be worth a little each way poke.
Yeah, I have this unhealthy obsession with thinking you can't make all on the straight track at Ascot, and then look what he did last year. So there you go. But I also love course and distance form, so you've got to respect him. The Tin Man, I thought Cape Byron was interesting as well, having won his last two races over course and distance. But there again, I think what he wants is to come off a really strong pace. It'll be interesting to see who exactly keeps Sands of Mali company up top. He is going to go forward and try and make all. Donn, what do you think?
Yeah, look, it's a very interesting race, Tom, I think. But I agree with Gina that if you can dig quite deep down into it and into the price. Like Sands of Mali last year, you just expected Harry Angel to come and pick him up all the way through the final furlong. You're expecting that he'd just go by him, and in fairness to Sands of Mali, he stuck on really well. And that, as we know, Ascot course form is more valuable on the straight track, especially than it is at most other tracks. So that's a massive factor to have a course and distance win in the bag. In this race last year, I think you have to allow him last time, but I think you can really in the Diamond Jubilee. There was fast ground that day, and he wore a tongue tie, which is interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if he does wear a tongue tie again. I suspect probably not, and maybe there's nothing in that, but I think maybe it definitely wasn't a positive. So I think he's worth definitely having a look at. Le Brise Breeze as well at a bigger price even. Like I know he's 7, like the Tin Man, and 7-year-olds just don't win this race. I think Tom Hogan's horse, Gordon Lord Byron, won it as a 6-year-old a few years ago, but it tends to be a kind of a younger horse's race. But Le Brise Breeze, and again another Ascot horse, soft ground, and his run the last day in the Hungerford Stakes I thought was very good against Glorious Journey. He travelled through the race, and Glorious Journey always looked like the most likely winner, but he did give him a bit of a scare, and that was his first run of the season. He could step forward from that. Look, the most interesting horse, of course, is Make a Challenge. Like he was rated 68 back when he won I think it was at Fairyhouse that he won way back when. It was actually not that long ago. It's a lot of runs ago, not that many months ago, but it's just like the job that Dennis Hogan has done with him. It's unbelievable, and Joe Doyle as well. So look, you'd hope he'd run well, but you can understand them having a go. It's as a Group 1 contest and a big pot to put 40 grand into it. It's a good bet because he's a 9-2 shot or a 5-1 shot. So it's a good bet to have. He still has to step forward again. Like he could step forward again, but he's got 7 or 8 pounds to find with the top ones on ratings. So it's a fair bit. He still has to go forward again, but all eyes will be on him. He's a fascinating runner. I would be worried about advertising on the ground. I know he won the Commonwealth Cup on easy ground, but it's going to be softer again on Saturday, so that's a little bit of a worry. Whereas Hello Yunzin, he's proven on it, albeit not at Ascot. He's proven on it last time at Haydock. He won the Sprint Cup on soft ground. He was good that day. Again, he only won by a half a length, but I think he probably had more in hand than that. So he's the improving, as I think Jane said as well, he's the improving high class horse who could go forward again. He could be the one who could blow the race apart. But I think the likes of Sands of Mali, Le Brise Breeze, I think maybe they're interesting at bigger prices.
You mentioned Make a Challenge. All he's got to do is finish third and they're 20 grand in profit. Job done. Simple as that. And the ground should suit. Right. Thoughts then, just tying up the Qipco British Champion Sprint. For me, I think that I'm probably going to, like Gina says, just back something at a slightly bigger price with course and distance form. Those two for me could well be the Tin Man and Cape Byron. Both of those can be backed at currently 10.0 and 11.3 respectively on the Matchbook Exchange. Jane, type your thoughts on the Champion Sprint.
I'm a Hello Yunzin camp, and while I look for bigger prices in other races, sprints, I'm sticking with this horse.
Hello Yunzin, best priced on Matchbook Exchange, 5.9 currently. Donn?
Yeah, I think further down the prices, Sands of Mali, Le Brise Breeze, and maybe Cape Byron. He's around, 10.0 or thereabouts. I think maybe big enough as well to have on side.
And Gina, just to give us a fourth different horse, Sands of Mali.
Sands of Mali, definitely. I think I'd be worried about Hello Yunzin. Might have a little saver on him, but yeah, Sands of Mali for me. Hopefully he can show that promise that Richard Fahey's always, he has shown it in the past, but he can show it again. on the soft ground on Saturday.
Around about 12.5 for Sands of Marley. Good stuff. We kick on to the Long Distance Cup, which is run over slightly shorter this year because it's moved to the inner track. And it's the second race on the card. The big question is, Stradivarius at the moment, 1.73. Is he going to turn up? We know that John Goslin's going to walk the course in the morning to see whether he will. Kew Gardens looks almost certain to go here based upon Aidan O'Brien's comments, 7.0. Royal Line is the same price. DXB rocking up at 9.0. I think that's on a line through the fact that everyone thinks, well, he can't beat Stradivarius, so there you go. Withholders into double figures, Mekong 13.0, and bigger and better beyond that. I'm going to come to Jane again because I know you wanted to talk about one here. So Jane, first of all, kick us off with the Long Distance Cup.
Yeah, well, there's nothing nobody or everybody knows about Stradivarius already. So look, it's completely down to whether he goes. But I am very strong on Kew Gardens. Like a lot of people, I think coming into this year, thought he might be Ballydoyle's main arc horse. He was their star 3-year-old last year, Grand Prix de Paris, won the Ledger, won Queen's Vase at Ascot, did everything right and looked like a horse that would be better at 4. But the wheels, unfortunately, have come off. He got beaten at Chester, which was a massive surprise. And then, of course, being beaten in Epsom in the Coronation led to what they found to be an issue with him. So he's missed the entire summer. He came back, I thought, ran really well in the Irish Ledger, looked 3 furlongs down like he wasn't going to get involved and kind of sprouted wings the last furlong. Whether that was the leader tying up, I'm not sure, but it's worth noting he was giving her £12 and she kind of got away on the front. So his comeback run in a race like the Irish Ledger, that was a very good run. He will stay the trip, no problem. I think he will handle the ground. And well, a few of them, these have had a couple of busy, hard runs. It's not like a sprinter having a busy season because they run 5-6 furlongs. When a long distance horse is a long season, that's a hard season. It's they have a lot more running to do. And I think Kew Gardens, if he is the horse that I thought he was last year, he is the class horse that's been forgotten this season. And I think he's the horse that if Stradivarius doesn't run, he'll go off likely favourite, but he's the horse that might give Stradivarius a run on soft ground if he even does take part.
So you'd be happy enough to not sort of officially take Stradivarius on, but at the prices still side with Kew Gardens if they were going off at 1.73 and 7.0 respectively. You'd still, if they both line up, you'd still be firmly in the Kew Gardens camp.
I would. I've been trying to get Stradivarius beaten a very long time, but it's not happening. I'm going to keep trying. And I look, Kew Gardens, I just think he's the forgotten horse of the season. I think he was a very good 3-year-old last year. Things just haven't gone right for him. He hasn't ran bad races. He's been second his last 2 starts and his first 2 starts this season. And look, Aidan will run a few of the horses in this race, but for me, he's the one that I think could be a class above.
I think I've been taking on Stradivarius since the Yorkshire Cup at the start of last year. So I just never sided with him. I don't know what it is. I mean, he's the best stayer we've had in the last decade. But I don't know. I think it's a disease, Donn. And every time we've done the Match Bet Racing review, I've gone, well, he's done it again, and you can't oppose him. Then next time I go out and go, well, I think we can beat him.
Yeah, I'm similar. I don't know why he only maybe it's because he only just does enough. He only wins by like a length and a half or 2 lengths, and he's had a long season, and they're not certain if they're going to run him or not, but I think they probably will. Yeah, I actually thought Kew Gardens might be the Ballydoyle Gold Cup horse for the season. I thought he was the horse who could step forward and step up in trip and be a Gold Cup horse, but look, he hasn't had that a clear run at it. Yeah, his run the last day, as Jane said, was very good in the Irish Ledger. I think Search for a Song, she could be very, very good. Like the performance she put up in winning the Irish Ledger, having raced keenly early on, and Chris Hayes, in fairness, she wasn't settling in behind, so he let her stride on, and she settled better in front. But even still, she'd still done plenty. And then it was surprising that she found her the home stretch. But Kew Gardens stayed on well, and that was his first run since Epsom, so he could come forward from that. I'd just be a wee bit worried about the ground. I think he's probably a good fast ground horse on soft ground. It'll be interesting to see how he goes. He got beaten on soft ground in the Chester race, the Ormond Stakes. He was well beaten by Miranda. I know Miranda loves that ground, and he's, as we saw last week again, he's very good on soft ground. But I'd just be a wee bit concerned about the ground for Kew Gardens. He's got course form though, and he's a classy horse, and he'll get the trip. Yeah, again, be interested to see what jockey bookings are. Like Capri has been very disappointing. He's as a 3-year-old, he won the Irish Derby. He beat Cracksman and Volcase in the Irish Derby. He won the Ledger. He beat Crystal Ocean, I think, in the Ledger.
And Stradivarius.
And Stradivarius.
And
rekindling.
Best Ledger for years.
Best Ledger of all time. He just, the last day, Shamie Heffernan rode him forward, and you kind of thought, you know, if he might be the one to keep on going forward, but no, he's just disappointing. It's just it'll be interesting to see now if he does run, and if he runs, how he'll do it, because he's a very, very talented horse. And DXB again, I thought he was a bit disappointing at Longshot last time in the Prix de Cadran. It just, you know, he's unfortunate in that he keeps knocking heads with Stradivarius. He's born into the same era as Stradivarius. That's a pity for him, because he probably could have won the £1 million bonus if Stradivarius hadn't been around. But I think at some point, you know, psychologically, horses just go, not this again. And he just looked a bit flat in front. Look, he could bounce back, and as we know with Mark Johnson, horses, you know, it doesn't matter how much running they've had or how close it is to their previous run that they're running again. You can probably count on running his race, and the soft ground's definitely in his favour. But yeah, I'd prefer, as an alternative to Stradivarius, I prefer Kew Gardens over DXP.
Gina, Team Stradivarius, we're assuming he's going to turn up here. I mean, he might not, of course, but if he does, what camp would you be in?
Yeah, if he does turn up, I mean, at the start of the season would have been very much like you. Sorry about this sunshine backlighting. That's not expected at this time of year.
Bring the atmosphere to the proceedings. I like it.
Yeah, glowing in the background. No, like you, at the start of the season, I thought, well, he's not that good, is he? I know he keeps winning these races, but he keeps beating the same opposition, and he's going to come up against some, you know, potentially more exciting kind of 3-year-olds, some new stayers. He's going to have to be at his very best this season, but he's just blown me away this year. He's just better than ever, I think. He rises to every challenge. He hasn't looked like his, you know, runs or busy campaign has got to the bottom of him at all. It's amazing. I saw him at Doncaster when, you know, that was a brave move to run him back so soon, take the Doncaster Cup after having landed the £1 million bonus. And he just came round into the paddock like an old Dobbin and sort of like a cart horse. And I thought, it must have got to the bottom of him. That's not normal. He's kind of down on his head, and, you know, he must be feeling the effects of it now, and not a bit of it comes out better than ever. So I think if he turns up, you know, provided the ground isn't, you know, atrocious and they opt not to run him, I do think he's going to be very hard to beat again. Kew Gardens, I was in the same camp at the start of the season, but they're at Chester, desperately disappointing, really, behind a horse that obviously loved the mud. But the ground did go, I know it was officially described as soft, but it was, you know, horrendous ground and didn't seem to handle it. And if he gets the same on Saturday, that would be the concern for me. I guess there's been a bit of interest in the likes of Mekong for Sir Michael Stout. You've got those sort of unexposed sorts that you're always thinking, can they take a step forward? Royal Lion would maybe be one of them. He's won the September Stakes and had a very light campaign for John Gosden. If he doesn't run Stradivarius, he could come into play because he's won that race that was run by likes of Enable, Jack Hobbs. He's got to step up in trip. He's very unexposed. We don't really know where we're at with him, but the fact that he's got him in here, and if he runs, he could be worth a look as well. But no, I'm very much Team Stradivarius, Tom, so fingers crossed he lines up.
I would echo that on Stradivarius. Final thoughts on the long distance cup. I think if he turns up, he just will win. I've given up taking him on. I'm not going to do it anymore. I won't be steaming in at the prices. I think it's fair to say 1.73 currently. I do think DXB, if he goes off around about 9.0 in the place market, then it's well worth a bet. You don't ever find him really out the first three. William Buick looks as though he's going to be back on board. He was on for his last win. There's no disgrace to Sylvester de Sousa whatsoever, but I don't think that'll be a bad thing. And he's a course and distance winner who doesn't mind a bit of cut underfoot. He's going to be up there throughout. I think he's sort of getting to silly price material where you go, I'm not saying he's going to lower the colours of Stradivarius, but he could warrant a bet. I can't quite man up and back Mekong, even though I think he'll like the ground. So DXB in a little place bet for me. Don, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Kew Gardens is a viable alternative to to Stradivarius. I think, you know, the difference between him and the betting is quite large, probably bigger than it should be. I think, you know, as Jane said earlier, he's a classy horse who hasn't had a lot of running this year. If he steps forward from his Irish Ledger run, which might be a bit better than people think, because I think the winner could be very, very good. I think he's interesting, with the small caveat about the ground.
Jane, Kew Gardens?
Yeah, holding strong in Kew Gardens.
And we know that Gina is sticking in the Stradivarius camp if he turns up, and we hope he does. Let's kick on to the fillies and mares. We've got Starcatcher. Goodness me, she's been phenomenal since the Ribblesdale. She's in there currently around about 2.63. Annapurna, Stable Companion, an Oaks winner, is in there at 6.1. That's the best price anywhere else with Matchbook. That is 6.1. Fleeting is 7.47. Magical, we don't think is going to show up here. She's a similar sort of price. Antonio de Vega, 10.8, and then we're going upwards from there. Gina, I know you've done a bit of work on this at the races or on the website on there. So kick us off if you can with the fillies and mares.
Yeah, I mean, depending on who lines up, and I think perhaps at declaration time we might get a few of these fall by the wayside. But I think it's one of the races of the meeting. In fact, there's so much strength in depth. We've got 3 classic winners in there. We've got, if Hermosa lines up, Jewel Guinea's winner, almost forgotten about her. We've got 2 Oaks winners, Annapurna and Starcatcher. Starcatcher, obviously, best to start with her. She's a very worthy favourite, as you said. She's really stamped her authority on her generation in both the Ribblesdale and subsequently in the Irish Oaks as well. Added the Prix Vermeil, obviously, last time out. Pretty testing conditions that day, so she's got lots of ticks in lots of boxes, hasn't she? Well-being, you know, stamina. Obviously the race is slightly shorter, but in these sort of conditions that hopefully won't be an inconvenience to her. She should handle the ground. She's got Frankie on board, who I think is going to opt for her. You know, she looks like she's going to be a real tough nut to crack. I mean, Annapurna, I was really impressed with her in France last time. She slogged it out from the front, just stayed all day. The Frankels just put so much stamina in them. It was a real kind of controlling front right, brilliant timed ride by Frankie, took the race by the scruff of the neck. There was some concerns at the time, I think, that she'd maybe gone in her coat, and so I just question whether they will actually run her on Saturday. Obviously she looked brilliant in the race, but they were thinking maybe she'd come to the end of her season at the time, so that's a potential question mark over her, and that will obviously make Starcatcher's job a little bit easier. Of the others, I mean, further down, there is the likes of the Jewel Guinea's winner, Hermosa, who's obviously got to step up in trip now and faces more testing ground than she's faced so far, so I guess that's a question mark. I mean, Tanar was a fascinating runner for Dermot Weld. He won this with a horse called Sapphire back in 2012, and obviously Tanar was by Shamadal, who's just been the sire of the season, hasn't he? The likes of Blue Point and Earthlight and Victor Ladorum and obviously Pinatubo flying the flag for him. So I think she's quite an interesting horse that obviously her one run in the UK in the Oaks, things just didn't go right for her at all. And since then she's been stepping up Group 2 level. She won the Give Thanks, I think it was, at Cork. And she's one that, you know, for a master trainer like Dermot Weld, you could see taking a step forward. But after going through every single runner in the field, we come to my selection,
Woo!
Which I'm actually going to go for the Rafe Beckett filly, Antonia de Vega, who I think's a fascinating runner here. We haven't seen much of her. She's very, very lightly raced. Obviously, Rafe won this race in 2015, I think it was, with Simple Verse. And she's a daughter of Lope de Vega. She will absolutely love the soft ground. Now, if it rains and rains more come Saturday, then I'd be getting more and more confident about her chances, because she cannot have it wet enough. The more mud, the better for her. She was quite touted after her win. We haven't seen her since June when she showed. She ran in the Fillies Mile and lost her unbeaten record as a juvenile. Supposedly had a Paston injury at that stage. Quite difficult to come back from that, but she did just that at Newbury in June to show that she, you know, retained all her ability. At that stage, she was pretty well touted for the Irish Oaks, so she's obviously still held in really high regard by her trainer. And now, she didn't run in the Irish Oaks on account of the fast ground. I think she's had a few maybe little setbacks in training since, but I spoke to Rafe this week actually, and she's gone for a racecourse gallop. Really pleasing work. Apparently she's been flying. More mud the better, and I just think she could be a little bit of a fly in the ointment, Antonia de Vega, for fillies that have had long seasons, got to the end. She's a fresh horse. She lines up for a trainer who does so well with this type of horse. And I think she could be a lot better than what we've seen so far. So I think she's an interesting one, Antonia de Vega, for this race.
Yeah, and currently trading Antonia de Vega around about 10.8. I've been waiting for to run, really, Gina. I remember speaking to Harry Bentley before the Irish Oaks, where he'd chosen to ride Manuela, but I got the impression that was sort of a had to because of the form that she'd shown building up to the race, and of course Antonia didn't run, rather than a pure ability case. That was the impression I got anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you can just, trainers are generally pretty negative, particularly Rafe, about their horses, but you could just tell there was, yes, that's a good bet, yes, how Rafe does. So that was enough for me. I'm taking that and running with it. I think he's surprised. She has surprised him in her work with how she's come forward after what's obviously been a bit of a truncated campaign. So it just feels like the stars are aligning for her. Obviously, she's got to step up. It's a competitive, tough race, but with that ground coming in her favour, I think that just swings it her way.
Donna, Gina's mentioned Tanawa. Are you channeling your inner Dermot Weld?
Yeah. Look, as Gina mentioned Dermot Weld. He does like this meeting Dermot Weld, and he won this race with Sapphire, who's actually a half sister to Search for a Song, who I mentioned earlier. And I know Search for a Song was never really on track for this race, but the fact that he's running Tanawa, yeah, look, it is interesting because she's a very, very progressive filly. Like, she beat a good horse, older filly of Gerald Lyons, who's staff in the Blue Wind Stakes early in the season, and you have to allow her Epsom Oaks run, but you can, A, because she never appeared to be happy that day, and B, she's won twice since, impressively on both occasions, including over 1.5 miles in the Give Thanks Stakes on soft ground when she stayed on really strongly, and then last time in the Group 2 race in the Blandford Stakes, again, she stayed on well. So she's a filly who she'll handle the ground, she's proven on the ground. She's never run at the track, but she stays the trip, even though, like by Shamardal, who's fantastic sire, he tends to get more kind of mile to 10 furlong horses, but she's proven over 1.5 miles, which is a positive. Look, she's just progressive. She has to improve again if she's going to win this, but there's every chance that she will. And Dermot Weld has probably had this race in mind for her for a little while. And she's proven that she deserves to take a chance in it. So I think she's a big player. Starcatcher sets the standard, but she won't get it as easy up front as she did in the Irish Oaks, that's for sure. She's a fit look, and she did stay on really well to win the Ribblesdale. Fleeting was a bit unlucky in the Irish Oaks, I thought, and she might take her chance again. She looked a bit unlucky last week, finished off really well in the Opera last time as well. She's one of those fillies who, she just, if it drops a wee bit better for her, she has one of these in her. She just, keeps on running well and just not getting there. But yeah, if they go fast, which they might well do, if Starcatcher is forced into going a wee bit faster than she did in the Irish Oaks, that could be a positive for Fleeting if she takes her chance. Hermosa was disappointing last time, but if she came back, obviously to her Guineas form, that brings her into it. Well, yeah, I think Tanawa she's a little bit of a sleeper as well. I think she's a wee bit under the radar. She's about 11.0, 10.0. I think she might be a wee bit shorter on the day.
Yeah, she's a wee bit shorter than that. Currently is Tanawa. She's 9.0 currently, but again, fair dues if you want to play in the place market as well. Jay, we're swerving ever so slightly at the top of the market, for all we're respecting it. Where are you looking?
Top of the market, yeah. I think Starcatcher has been one of the stars of the season. I also thought she wouldn't have been out of place in this year's Arc if she had been in another stable. Maybe she'd have taken her chance. I think she doesn't have to make the running. She didn't in the Ribblesdale at Ascot. She sat mid-div and took it up in the straight. So if something wants to go forward, I don't think she's a filly that isn't versatile as regards tactics. So she was good in the Irish Oaks. I totally respect Fleeting, but I thought if she was ever going to pass a horse, she'd have passed them in Longchamp the last day. And you know what? She didn't. So Fleeting is one of those fillies you could put into a forecast to finish second. And I think she might be the one to stay behind Starcatcher again. Starcatcher was good in the Vermeil. That has worked out with Villamarina obviously coming out and franking the form on Arc weekend at Longchamp. So I'm going to stick with Messrs Gosden and Dettori this time, having taken them on with Stradivarius last time. I actually think Hermosa isn't going to run, so don't have to worry about her. And totally see the Tarnawa argument. I was impressed with her in the Blandford. I think Goddess is a good filly, or was a good filly, and that was a good performance at Group 2 level. And no better man than Dermot Well to bring a horse to the boil. And you'd imagine this race would have been a plan, maybe even after Epsom, straight after Epsom. So I like Starcatcher. I'm not going to oppose her, but if somebody thought it was too short for them, I would be thinking Fleeting will probably finish second, and Tarnawa might just finish third.
Good stuff. That's Jane's thoughts. I can't wait for Fleeting to just get up on the line and pass Starcatcher. I think a backup and trip's going to suit it. It wouldn't be the most confident shout, but she wasn't too far behind in the Ribblesdale. Donn, we know you're Tarnawa, and Gina's taking a fly at the biggest price of the lot with regards to the horse we put up on Antonia de Vega. That's our thoughts on the fillies and mares. We kick on to the QE2. I love this race. We've got the Revenant in there, who quite rightly heads the betting based upon what he's achieved so far, around about 3.25. Magna Grecia is in there at 6.0. Then we get into Ben Battle, who's just drifted a little bit. I think the ground has contributed to that without a doubt. 8.0 for Ben Battle. Then you get into Law Glitters 7.0 and double figures beyond that. I might kick us off here just for fun and just mention Accidental Agent. I think is a horse who's a massive price. I think he's just completely overlooked coming into this. It can be backed at 33 currently on the Matchbook Exchange. He's unbeaten in completed starts over course distance with regard to his last run here, but of course he refused to race when he went out and tried to reclaim his crown in the Queen Anne. I don't know why he did that. I wondered at one stage if it was because he was drawn up against a wing and he planted himself. He's off it and slowly away, but then at Goodwood he was up against a wing and he broke all right. But they've obviously done a bit of work because he gets away all right now. The ground is a slight concern, but he's a Group 1 course and distance winner. I love course and distance form on the straight track. And at the prices, the jaw nearly dropped, or did drop when I saw the price of Accidental Agent. So I will definitely be backing him at the prices, albeit I wish it was on slightly better ground. Who wants to kick off the back of that? No pressure. Go on, Donn.
Okay, Brad. Yeah, it's strange to be talking about a miler, his record on completed starts, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what happened at the meet.
It's weird.
I honestly don't know what happened.
Because he was kind of quietly fancied, wasn't he, Dan? He was backed at big prices down to, kind of medium-sized prices. But yeah, look, course and distance form, as we've alluded to before at Ascot, it's massive, especially on the straight track. Yeah, look, it's a very interesting race, this. I think Magna Grecia would be fascinating if he were to take his chance. We haven't seen him since the Guineas, since he got beaten in the Irish Guineas, having won the Guineas at Newmarket. So if he's back and ready to go, then yeah, he's. I think he brings a solidity into the race. For all that, there's the small caveat about his absence. But you know that if Aidan O'Brien's bringing him, then he's ready to run. The Revenant's been a revelation. Like, he's just suddenly come from left field to take the top position at the top of the market. I think that the money, he's one of those horses, I think the money came for him when it looked like, and it looks like the ground is going to be soft. He might just drift a wee bit because his record is very good. He battled on really well to beat Imaging, a good horse for Dermot Wells in the Group 2 race at Baden-Baden the time before his long shot run. And he's obviously a progressive horse who'll go on the ground. It's just hard to see where he's fitting in. On ratings, he's got, he's right up there. But I think he's probably a horse who's going to drift. Lord Glitters, he's going to run his race, isn't he? Like, soft ground at Ascot again, over a mile. That's what he wants. So you can see a case for him running a big race. But I think Century Dream is interesting at a big price as well. Simon Christopher's horse. He hasn't run since Maidan, so that's a worry. And he got beaten in all three runs at Maidan. But his run last year in this race was a hell of a run. He was up there in the van with Lawrence, and he kept going forward. Hageman was in front as well that day. He kept going forward when Lawrence and Hageman faded, and he was only just run down by Roaring Lion in the end. He wasn't beaten far, and I Can Fly just nutted him for second place. So that was a big run at Ascot on soft ground. it's a worry that we haven't seen him since, but that's factored into his price. He's a big price, but around about 21 or 26 maybe on Matchbook. I just think that in a race that, in which there are question marks.
I'll give you 22.
22 is good enough. Yeah. There are question marks about some of those that are out of the market. Like you mentioned, Ben Battle, he was a revelation. Not that he was a revelation, but his performance the last day in the Joel Stakes was fantastic on good ground. The worry about him is the soft ground, and I suppose we'll know by the time the race has been run how soft the ground is on the straight track. Because QE2 used to run on the round track, didn't it? I think for the first year of Champions Day, it was switched to the straight track, which obviously it's good for horses who don't want the ground to be bottomless. And Ben Battle, he looks like a horse who's at his best on good or fast ground. It remains to be seen how he's going to handle the ground and how the ground is going to be relative to him. But he's, unlike Lord Glitters, it's a negative for him that the ground is going to be as it is. But so with those question marks about the Revenant as well and Magna Grecia, how he's going to be after his break, I think it's worthwhile having a look way down, and Century Dream might be the one for that.
Jane, where are you looking in the market for the QE2?
Well, Donn hit the nail on the head. It's worth having a look way down. I think Ben Battle is definitely the best horse in the race. He's 6 pounds clear of the Revenant, but I think he wants it like bell metal, as the saying goes. And the Revenant has been brilliant, but he's too short for me in a Group 1. A discipline, like he's been solid at Group 3, Group 2 level, but look, on conditions, maybe he's worth that price. But for me, I want to go bigger. And to be honest, I'm going to go left field and put in Phoenix of Spain. I think I was really blown away with him at the Curragh, and it's a disappointing thing for everybody involved that he hasn't been able to reproduce anything like that since. They've changed tactics. They held him up the last time in the Moulin, and he's had 4 starts this year. He's blew out at Ascot and at Goodwood. But I thought there was a glimmer of some kind of a light there behind Circus Maximus and Romanized last time in France. They held him up, and he ran on between horses last time. So I'd be backing without the favourite here, and my each way bet would be Phoenix of Spain. Sonalope de Vega will hopefully handle the ground. And look, he is a classic winner in the race. And what price will you give me about him?
I will give. Well, let's see what Matchbook. I'd give you 50s, Jane, but I wouldn't. 17.7 for Phoenix of Spain. You'll take that, will you?
Sure, I'd take the 50s if Tom Stanley.
I go back on it. I take it back. Do you know, it's going to be interesting if they hold him up again, that straight mile. I think James Dawes set to ride. If they that would make me interested, just seeing how he's travelling. I think he could really suit that.
The engine is there. I prefer to bank on a horse where I know the engine is there than to hope a horse has an engine.
Gina, what are you looking at?
I was really interested in Phoenix of Spain as well. As Jane said, he was so impressive in Ireland, and he, it has been frustrating and a bit disappointing since. But I think he's definitely worth chancing at that sort of price. He's such a tough horse when he is on a going day, and I would love to see him bounce back. I think I'd rather be with him than a Magna Grecia, who I think obviously we've got not only the question mark of him coming back from a long absence, but just the question mark over how good he actually is. He was on the right side, on the stand side for the Guineas, beating the biggest price horse in the field in King of Change. You could question that. He's gone on and disappointed in the Irish Guineas. It'd be great to see him come out and really stamp his authority on the classic generation. But I'd have a big question mark over just how good he is in the first place, let alone the fact that he's coming back and he's encountering different ground. So, something like a Phoenix of Spain, I'd rather take over him. Agree with Jane. I think Ben Battle is the best horse in the race. I would have been very strong on him if it wasn't for the ground. And again, concerns over the Revenant stepping up to this sort of level. It feels like Francis has really nurtured this horse all season. He's had a bit of a midsummer break as well. He's come back. He's proven his liking for that sort of ground. He's obviously thriving. Whether he's going to be good enough against a horse who we know has got a Group 1 performance in him, I'm not sure. So I've gone in a roundabout way because I just can't decide on this race, as you probably can tell reading between the lines. But
we're all against, the point being, we're all against the top of the market. Cue the Revenant going and bolting up. But there you go. Sometimes that's going to happen. The Revenant is around about Yeah, 3.5, and then you're getting into...
He was 14-1 on the back of that performance, I think, in France, and I think it's more because of what we've been saying and picking holes in all the others that people have settled on him, but I think that probably is looking a little bit short now.
Moving on to the Qipco British Champion Stakes, where Magical now heads the betting. Now it looks as though she's going to head that way, given Aidan O'Brien's comments a couple of days ago. We, as we're sat here, aren't 100% certain that's going to happen, given we're doing it for 4 days, but it does look ever so likely. It can be backed at 3.25. A Dave can be backed at 3.75. A Coronet, who is going to be retired this year, unlike stable companion Enable, can be backed at 5.31. Japan, we don't think is going to turn up. And Deirdre then kicks off the double figures beyond that. Go on, Donn, lead us off.
Yeah, I can't really find an angle to this race, Tom. I think it's right that Magical is favourite. I think Adabe is going
the perfect person to lead us off.
Exactly, yeah. Cheers, Tom.
Why is it so tricky, Dom?
Magical is the best horse in the race. Like, Adabe is rated £8 inferior to Magical, and he has to give her £3. So it makes no sense that he should be a shorter price than her. And it's not like they're unexposed 2-year-olds who, could progress significantly. We're getting to know what level they're at. And Adabe is very good on soft ground. To James Doyle saying today that he would love if the race was on the original track on the bottomless ground, or as soft as he can have it, because we know how good Adabe is on soft ground. We saw it at Royal Ascot and Multiple Stakes, and again last time at Haydock. So all the angle has gone out of him, because he has plenty to find. We know that he handled the ground really well. He thrives on it, whereas others may not thrive on it. Definitely not as much as him. But we know that Magical handles soft ground as well. And while she's had a busy season, she was very good in the Irish Champion Stakes. I know she got the run of the race and things worked out for her, but she was always in the right position. Reinmer asked her for her effort, timed it really well, and she stayed on it. Look, I know Deirdre came from behind and ran on strongly, but I don't think she'd have caught Magical really. I mean, we'll never know, but either way, Magical ran out a good winner. And then last time at the Arc, she raced prominently into a strong pace, so you can allow her that. I suppose the worry is that's only 2 weeks ago or 13 days ago, so will she have recovered from that? The chances are she will, because she's just such a tough filly, and she's had a busy season, so it is a little bit of a worry in the back of your mind, and especially at a short price. I think we can leave her alone from a betting perspective, but I do think she's the most likely winner of the race. Adabe, yeah, he's very, very good on soft ground. Coronet's interesting, and she's been attracting a little bit of money recently. She's probably a better horse this year than she was last year, even as a 5-year-old. And she comes into it, but I think she's around about the right price now, around about 6.0 or thereabouts. I think it's hard. I'm not with any of the three of them. I'm not against any of the three of them necessarily. Japan would have been the horse that would have interested me most if he was going, but looks like he's not going to go. So yeah, look, it's a race for me to have a look at.
If you can't find an angle in the market, then you're not going to play for no reason. That's just how it goes, isn't it? Can you find an angle, Jane, into any of those prices you think might be a little bit off what you'd expected?
Yeah, I think the value of the race is Coronet for me. She has been not a revelation. She was high class even as a 3-year-old. Her run in the Ledger, obviously behind Capri in that, but I think she's been very good. She was very good at Saint-Cloud on soft ground, and then confirmed that form in the Prix Jean Romanet at France last time. I'm with her, because I was going down through the race last night. We think Cracksman, Frankel, New Approach, all the big names that have won this race. Adabe just doesn't sound right amongst those horses to me. And rating 114, that's fine. Yes, Coronet is only rated £1 superior at 115, but he's going to be giving her obviously £3, as Donn said. So I think on the ground, she's usually running over 1.5 miles. I think 10 furlongs. If the ground is testing, it'll probably just be just right. I think this is the race for her to run in. It's her last run before she retires. And just because you can pick holes in so many, I'm one of Magical's biggest fans, but it's a huge ask. She got a hard race in Paris from when she jumped out of the gates. She got a hard race in Paris, so it would be a mammoth task to ask her and take her on at very short odds to do that double. And Deirdre, with the ground concern. It's just there's a lot of holes in a lot of horses here, and I think Coronet is the most solid of those. With the combination of Dettori and Gosden on your side, I don't think a filly has won this since Pride in 2006, which isn't a stat that you'd want to be hearing an awful lot of. But she's battle hardened. She likes the ground. She likes the track. She is a lot more solid than her opponents for me.
I'd echo that on a day. He just doesn't really fit, particularly now they've moved it. This could be no worse than soft, this going, even though we're all expecting it to be a bog. And I don't know, I'm a huge fan of a day, but as a champion stakes winner up against a filly like Magical, I don't know, Gina. For me, Magical is just too good for them. I know it's a quick backup. She managed to do it last year, perhaps after a less hard race in the Arc, but I can't really look anywhere other than her at the top of the betting at 3.25.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And when you go through the Roll of Honour, as Jane said, it does sort of back that up. You've got the Frankels, the Almanzors, Twice Overs. You've got a lot of, the big horses coming out on top and getting the job done, and the favourites kind of prevailing. So I'm looking through and I'm like, oh, Medellin ran well on the soft ground at Chester earlier in the year. But then you just think Medellin, very disappointing in France last time, up against Magical. It's Magical. And I agree, she had a really tough race. She had an impossible task when she was at the front as the race starts to unfold around her, and she was never going to be able to hang on. But she still ran a very, very good race to finish 5th, I think it was. She always gives her running, this horse. And even when you think they've bottomed her and she's had a really long season and she's come up against a Naval umpteenth time, she still manages to grit it out. And obviously she beat the boys in the Irish Champion Stakes. And for the sake of not overlooking the obvious here, I think I'm going to have to side with her again to do exactly that on Saturday.
I'm glad we put up some bigger prices elsewhere, because we're not finding much with regard to bigger prices in there for all. Jane is talking about the chances of Coronet, who's the biggest really of all of them that we put up. She's 5.31 currently, Coronet, and Magical's in there at 3.25. As far as the Balmoral goes, I'm not sure if everyone's got a view on this, but if you do, speak now or forever hold your peace. Anyone got anything on the Balmoral?
I quite liked, I'm hoping a good day for Rafe Beckett, because I quite like Biometric. Well, actually, he's got Mitcham Swagger as well, right down at the bottom. I know he's like a 7-year-old or something now, but if it comes up a bog, he's worth a look, because he absolutely loves Ascot and he loves the softer conditions, the better. But Biometric, obviously, kind of inspired silence that descended over the grandstand when thwarting Frankie Dettori's 5-timer, I think it was at the time, and Harry Bentley guided him to the win in the Britannia. Beat Turgenev. Turgenev's obviously, I think, was in. No, he's not in there, but beat Turgenev on the day. That was his best performance of the season, and it came with a bit of dig underfoot. So I just thought a horse with a lot of stamina, if it's testing conditions. He's been, only made his debut in April, so he's been sort of nursed along this season. Did look a little bit held. He stepped up to Group Company, didn't he? And then went back into a handicap at York and looked a little bit like he might have been held off that sort of mark. He's on the same mark here, but I think the combination of the ground, Ascot, the track, the trip, the emphasis on stamina, I think might just play into his hands. So I thought he might be worth a chance in obviously what is an absolute minefield. So Biometric was the one for me, Tom. That's
17.0. That could be a really profitable trip to Rafe Beckett's you had last week.
I didn't actually go, but I just doorstepped him at the sales. And I need to ask you about your runners. I quite like Biometric and this filly, tell me. And you didn't put me off either of them, so there we go.
Perfect. I'm going to back Cloncooley at 13.0, a little bit shorter. Obviously ran really well at the Royal Meeting, and I think will go really well here with Jamie Spencer jocked up. So that will carry my money. Donn, Jane, swerving Balmoral, anything to add?
Yeah, I think Escobar could run well, Tom. Like he ran a hell of a race in this race last year. He was only just beaten by Charger Bridge, and he's only 3 pounds higher this year. He was out of form at the start of the season. He looked like a horse who was going to go the wrong way, but actually he's jumped back, and his last 2 runs were both at Ascot. Last time he was 3rd behind Kinran and Greenside, which it was a big run. Finally, Kinran got his win. But yeah, I kind of thought he was a York horse before this year, but based on last year's run and his last 2 runs, both at Ascot, he goes well on soft ground. Maybe soft ground and 7 furlongs is probably optimum for him, but he gets a mile okay as well. As long as it's not, it shouldn't stretch him. He's run over further as well. So yeah, I think look, they're all big prices in this race. Excuse me. So yeah, I think whatever he's 17.0 or thereabouts. Yeah, I think he goes into the race on an upward curve.
Yeah, 17.0 as well. And Jane, you don't have to for the Balmoral.
I won't lie, I haven't looked.
Love it. Good stuff. That was a curveball thrown in at the end. Best bets for Qipco British Champions Day. Jane, you can kick us off. Who's your best bet on the day?
At the value that you're giving me for Coronet Matchbook, Mr. Matchbook, I'm going to go for her in the Champion Stakes.
For me, my best bet is going to be Accidental Agent at massive double figures. Has had a wind up, I think, as well. And I think we'll go really close as long as he decides to leave the stalls in the QE2. Gina, best bet?
Best bet would be Antonia de Vega in the Fillies and Mares. I think she's a silent sleeper and could relish conditions and go well. And I'll have a few quid on Sands of Marley in the sprint as well.
Donn?
Taking Gina on with Turnau in the Fillies and Mares. Just think she's a progressive filly, trained by Dermot well. It goes into the race on an upward curve and could improve enough to go and run a big race.
Great stuff, everyone. Thank you very much indeed. Good luck with all those best bets. Jane, I'm definitely not giving 50s about Phoenix of Spain. I can't believe I even suggested it. Pure madness. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Good luck to those of you playing at home for Qipco British Champions Day. Thanks very much to Jane. Thanks to Donn. Thanks to Gina for our preview, for giving up their time. And hopefully we're going to bag lots of winners. Bye for now.